Well, hello. You are listening to the very first ever Tips Record Club podcast. I am Ben Ellman.
And this is Robert Mercurio.
And for those of you that don't know, Tips Record Club is a bi-monthly vinyl subscription service where we curate these fine albums, many of them never before heard releases from legacy artists, some live at the legendary Tipitina's Club. A little special lanyard gift. It's really kind of a special thing.
Yeah, and you can sign up for it at tipitinasrecordclub.com.
Yep.
Makes a great gift, too.
So if you're not a member, please consider becoming a member. We're going to be here doing this podcast, talking about the releases, hopefully as they come out, and we'll have some special guests with us discussing some sort of behind-the-scenes information.
And today, we're going to be featuring the new Anders Osborne record, Bewildered.
Great record.
And we asked our friend David Kunian to go interview Anders, and this is what they said.
Hey, this is David Kunian. I'm the curator of the New Orleans Jazz Museum and a DJ for Tuesday night's Freaknologist Lunatique Show on WWOZ FM New Orleans. I've known Anders Osborne for a long time and have always been a big fan of his songwriting and his live performances and his guitar playing and his overall approach to music. I was really psyched to be able to talk to him about his new record. So here I am, and here's an interview with the great Anders Osborne.
Chased a stripper named Blue Illinois. Had long black legs and baby oil. But she liked girls much more than boys. Tall and tainted love. Dark decayed love.
How did this record come together? How did you put it together and get with tips and stuff?
So I think, let me see. Originally, it was made probably in 19, right before the pandemic. Leading up to it, we started the whole process, and me and a partner for this Fifth Ward label, we got together. We started at Chad, the drummer, Waddy on guitar, Bob on bass. We did it at Esplanade, and then everything came to a screeching halt because we couldn't tour. And then it just kind of sat there and kind of honestly almost forgot about it. Then we brought it back, remixed it. It needed to be remixed. And once we got into it again, I'm not really sure if it was probably through my manager, Alex, and then he brought it up with Tips, and then Tips and them, they were like, because I'd asked probably in the beginning of the Vinyl Club, I asked, maybe something I've done, maybe we can find a weird rehearsal, something that's obscure that you guys can put out. Well, this ended up being a good opportunity for both parties, I think so. And so about 6 months ago, we said, yeah, let's make that the next thing.
Okay. So this music and the writing, that this is now 4 years old?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does it feel coming back to it after 4 years?
I think some of it is still very relevant topically.
Okay.
Emotionally, it's probably most of it is in a different space. I was in a heavier, I wouldn't say it wasn't dark. It was more like maybe a little more cynical, which I don't feel today. I feel a lot lighter. But it's interesting because I think the recording itself is maybe one of my best to date. So it's exciting to listen to. Has great sounds, great performance, songs are killer. Everything about it is great. So it's enjoyable. Sometimes you make a record and the topics are not relevant anymore and it's maybe not your best work. That's hard to promote. Right. This is not the case here. And it's also not very time isolated. It's not like, oh, I was going through a depression or I was going through a divorce. It's not, none of that. It's sort of a general, broader thing. Yeah, it's not specific to that time. It's a broader sense of topic, and musically, it's the way I sound on stage today. So it's applicable for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes, do you have trouble going back to some of your older stuff because you're in a different position and different space mentally or emotionally?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of these songs become mantras, like the song "Mind of a Junkie." I can't just keep playing that because it's like that's not where I live. I'm not living in that headspace at all. And I think, too, you don't want to manifest stuff that, it's kind of something you work through and it's done. Most of what I do musically the last 15, maybe even 20 years is not pure entertainment. It's actually pure art. I mean, it's just coming from my heart, and then I put it out, I make the piece, and move on. Live is a little different. You have to go back to the catalog. So you have to maneuver your heart a little bit. You have to say, okay, don't get so engaged in this song. Just play it because people need to hear it. Good thing. All right, moving on. And then you throw in maybe 2-3 songs that is truly what I want. So live is a different element for me. I'm more of a record guy. Live is something that I do so we can meet, hang out, and we can kind of experience, a night together. I think part of it is you have to be into theater. You have to act out a role. And again, I differentiate pretty hard between being an artist and an entertainer. And I prefer to be an artist, but I make most of my money entertaining, right? So the art part can't lean on popularity, because if it does, you're going to be so hung up on whether people like you or not. And then you spend all your time chasing stuff that really, it's a God-sized hole that you can't fill with external stuff. You just can't put it in there. Art is an internal experiment. It's something you do that you don't really know what it means. You don't really know if it's actually valuable to anyone else. But you have this drive to do it as an artist. That's what you do. You just do it. When you play live and you got to get it up, let's say you're Jimmy Page, you're acting, you're walking like you used to walk, and maybe you've adopted. I do that too. I have certain steps I'll put in, and then I have gigs where I don't do any of the theater, and I just stand there, and I'm very inside. Now that becomes part of the thing, but you have to be sort of aware of the fact 1,000 people are here, spotlight's on me, I got a PA, and blah, 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 we've done all this stuff, and now everyone's staring. That's theater.
Right.
That's not okay. Let's be artsy up here. That's, man, you're going to lose a big chunk of the crowd right there and go, what the heck is going on here? Right? So I think they're good theater majors. That's what they are, and that's what I am. You have to apply that. I think some people do it better, and some people, and I put myself in that category, I shouldn't do it quite as much as I do. It's difficult to keep it up.
Yeah.
I think Grateful Dead, good part about a band like that, or a lot of bands, is they're bands so they can take turns playing the theater.
Right.
And 1 or 2 people can go, screw this. When you're a single artist, Bob Dylan, Steve Earle, anybody that's just one person, you got to watch how many shows you do.
Yeah, because you have to do the act, and that can be draining in and of itself.
And you're there for them, not for yourself. So.
Mm-hmm. What makes this record different or similar to other records you've done?
Okay, so the 2 answers?
Oh, let's do it first. What makes it different?
Okay, different is that it took much longer than pretty much any of my records take because of the pandemic. That gave me a little time, I think, to perfect some parts of it. We didn't re-record anything, but we remixed and we mastered and we did a lot of that post-production stuff. And so that's different. Artistically, it's like an extension of Flower Box, but one step further. It's a guitar-based record, I think. It's 2 guitars, me, Waddy, drums and bass, and we're playing it as hard as we can, and we're trying to maximize all the meters. The goal was a little bit to see everything in red. I wanted things to be hot, 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 and driving it hard. Tempos, I didn't want them to be too fast, but I wanted to punch really strikingly. and then there's one or two, like one ballad, but it turned out to be tempo, maybe one of the faster songs. So it's, yeah, usually I'm a sucker for sentimental ballad stuff, and this record, there's not a lot of that. It stays on the rock side, though.
Yeah,
I think.
So what makes it, if that's what makes it different, what makes it similar to your previous records?
And then I think it's the story songs. It's from the similarities are, I'm working out relationships, you know, with God or with people or with myself, and I'm dealing with the, you know, that position of my language. It's the same as it's been pretty much all through.
Right.
You know what I mean? Right. There are a couple of long story songs, but it stays in the songwriting part. I think it's the same. We just approached it production-wise a little tougher.
It sounds like also, like you were saying, you're working this record, the songwriting, based on, you know, on your experiences versus, I don't know, your imagination and stuff. So
yeah, and the experience, let's say Picasso's Villa, which is one, there I'm taking a cynical approach to being an entertainer. So then I create a storyline, and then I run with that. And I think I started something on this record that is more and more happening, which is a playfulness in a storyline that's not real, but it's based on events in my life, and then I create characters and people that can travel through that story. And then the moral of the story is, and then there's one or two lines that basically describe why I had fun writing it.
I want to ask you, when you write, how do you write? Do the lyrics come first, the music? How does that work for you?
It's usually music, so it's the guitar, and then I play around with capo. Yeah, I move the capo a lot, and the positioning, and then so may noodle around, and then I have different instruments. But if you do, I started a song yesterday. That's with the capo up on 6, you do it on 1. Same everything, I'm holding a G position. But now it wants to be slower, right? You go to actual G. It's not just a key, the whole lyrical content will change when you do these things. So back to the 6th fret, which is where that's almost like old-fashioned 60s folk song, right? For some reason. So that's usually what happens. I noodle on the guitar, I move the capo, I find keys, and then usually a melody with some line comes in. It's usually nonsense, it's not really precise. And then every once in a while there'll be a poem. I love to write poems, so I may write something that's like, it's poetically very pleasing, but it doesn't have any rhymes, and then I may go, that should probably be a song, you know, something like that. But it's not that I usually start with, I have this idea about women's rights, and then I sit down.
Right.
You know, some people do that really well. It starts with music, to answer your question. But
do you have to rewrite a lot, either the music or the lyrics, or?
Not too much. I used a voice memo on the phone, and so I put the initial idea down, and then I don't change. So I don't re-record it as I improve or add lyrics. I stay with the original, write it down, go back to the original, because in the original voice memo is usually this super, super pristine idea. And there can be a tiny inflection in one of the parts of the song that I just don't want to lose. And next time I sing it, I know that's going to be gone because I can't mimic it exactly. So I stay with that as long as possible until everything is finished. Then I do a second version. And that has proven to be kind of working for me.
Okay. Do you write every day, or do you wait for inspiration to hit, or how does that work?
I like working. I may take a break for 2-3 weeks, but I'd say I sit down and maybe try pretty much every day. Yeah. I work every day. And the muse seems to, my inspiration is harder for me to make it stop than it is to wait for it to come. So it's easier if I just sit, voice memo, and then I mean, there are hundreds of song ideas on the voice memo, but I don't feel a need to finish it. It's there if I need something. I'm more interested in the initial sit down than having to produce. And then as soon as there's a record or there's a project that needs a song, I go, I got something. And then I sit down and then I finish it. But yesterday inspiration came and I put it down and I wrote the whole thing more or less, yeah.
And are you always thinking about writing for yourself versus writing for, your friends or other people and stuff like that? Or how does that work?
Yeah, it's mainly for me.
Okay.
But since I write for other people too, every once in a while I'll think of someone else. But mostly it's if they reach out and then I think about them, I listen to their stuff. Maybe if it's someone I don't know, I read their bio and I just try to get a sense of it. But yeah, I make up fake records. Like I pretend the title of the record, the whole thing, and then I write for that idea, a concept, like all strings or punk record, and then I think in the terms of, okay, it's going to be social commentary. Okay, Jesus told me. Cool title. Okay, Jesus told me. What the heck did he tell me? So now that's fun and interesting, right? Well, now it's a whole concept. So that's what keeps me inspired, I think.
Okay.
Pretending I have a record that's coming out.
And you do that both for your ideas for yourself and for possibly other people.
Yeah, I make up ideas that are not really there yet. Yeah.
When you look back at some of the records, or even this record, do you see that there is a concept in it that you didn't realize at the time?
Yeah, that has happened. But usually the concept comes halfway through the record or somewhere in the process I go, oh. But I'd say so American Patchwork, which was the first sober record, I think, I had a concept. I wanted the production to be a lot like almost a Fleetwood Mac, Lindsey Buckingham, layered guitar parts, counter melodies, ELO, but based on what I do. Mm-hmm. Obviously, stylistically, not what they do. It's much more pop. But I wanted the same approach. So that was the concept. Black Eye Galaxy, that follow-up, was a dream I had, and the dream, I woke up and the number 64 was crucial. It was this vital number I had to remember, and I was curious, so I looked it up and talked to the label and said, I'm going to name the record 64, because I'd started all the songs and I was writing. They said, no, you're not. That's not going to call it 64. So I looked it up, and it happened to be a very cool number, the number of chess, the squares and Chinese symbols are 64, and
there's 64 things in I Ching and all that.
Exactly. There's all kinds of things, and I was like, this is curious. Why did I dream this? So this must be the unconscious knows some stuff. And so I tapped into it a lot and started reading up more and more. And then I found that M64 is called the Black Eye Galaxy. It's a galaxy named M64. So I said, okay. So I called the label and said, how about Black Eye Galaxy? What is that? I said, it's just a name, nothing, don't worry about it. And they're like, all right, that's cool. I'm like, okay, cool. So I still got to call it 64, but something else. Now that led to that song. I said, okay, I got to write a song called Black Eye Galaxy. So I did. And then that was the concept. So, and that came halfway through writing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is each record, somewhere in the process, the concept shows up. Rarely does it happen afterwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see it at some point.
And then you strive. Now, sonically, how it turns out, that I think I've learned to not mess with that, because that has its own life. Mm-hmm. It does what it's going to do. You can't force that stuff. I can't imagine a sound and then it has to stay in that vision. Mm-hmm. I think that's not realistic in my experience. Okay. You have to allow these players and engineers time of the year, where you are, dry climate, wet, all these things affect the sonic product. Mm-hmm. So you have to just roll with it.
These days, is there anybody in particular that is influencing your playing or influencing your songwriting?
Most of my inspiration is just from nature, I think. But I mean, not really, because I'm inspired and I listen to a lot of blue note jazz and stuff like that. Mainly when I cook, when the sun's setting in the kitchen and I stand there. I love cooking. And that process is very inspiring. I go for long walks in the morning. That's usually inspiring, the medium pace. So there are more activities, meditation, walking in nature, cooking with maybe some Rosa Passos, Brazilian guitar player in the background, and Stan Getz or, something like that. Specifically someone doing something that's inspiring me. It's hard because I don't really look for other people's art to adopt into mine.
Right.
I'm looking inward or around me in nature to find things that make me want to say something. Because when you're young, the first 10 years of your expression, it's about absorbing other people's stuff and figure out which parts you want to keep as your toolbox and go, okay, I like that way. Okay, no rhyme until the fifth word, every fifth word. Okay, that's a cool way. I've never seen that. So you figure stuff out. Once you get past that, I find it difficult. I can't listen to songwriters very much or rock records. They don't do anything because it's what I do. And believe it or not, my favorite music is mine. That's the thing I listen to with the biggest heart, right? Because that's the whole point. Yeah, it's like snippets of things that happen. I wouldn't say there's an artist that I look at and I think a lot of times the sounds are too pristine. It's too perfect nowadays that it's hard for me to understand what it is in the human experience that I need to learn from this.
Right.
It can be entertaining in a movie or something, but what am I supposed to learn from it if it's that pristine? Okay. So usually it's old records, a lot of jazz, Jerry Mulligan and stuff like that.
Okay. Jerry Mulligan, you said Stan Getz.
Yeah.
Who else are you listening to these days?
There'll be Rosa Passos all the time. I listen to, Chet Baker, always the romantic stuff when he's singing. All Coltrane. Coltrane's always inspiring. There's so much humanity and flaw in all the things he does. It's just remarkable how it can be so perfect in its flaws. It's really a fabulous thing to me. And he's remained that way. And he was also one of those that it was hard for me to understand first, not because it was technical, but because it was so many raw notes. So when I was younger, I thought Cannonball was much more inspiring. Well, Coltrane sort of stays in this weird space, almost like a Neil or something, where it's so flawed that's partially why it's so powerful. And I learned from him, so I use a lot of his technique in my soloing, which is he will go for this note, and then he talked about playing the note inside the note, and the overtones, and he's searching within that thing. Yeah. It's my favorite thing to do when I play solo is to I try to imagine, okay, what would John do? Stay here, stay, don't go, don't be afraid. And you challenge yourself. And when I hear him do it, I go, it's so freaking brave. In the 60s, you're an African-American man playing this outside shit, and outside that, you go outside. It's like, damn, there's bravery in there. And stand there and just own that stuff.
Yeah, for 35 minutes
just
straight.
Fucking won't give up.
Yeah.
It's in here somewhere. I'm gonna chip away at it. And that, back to you said today, not many people sound like that with this thing. They're like, come on. Yeah. I love that feeling. Yeah. I think that's why we like brass bands, because it's so flawed and so pitchy that it feels like it's a true celebration of something just innocent. Mm-hmm. We're alive. Yeah. We're alive.
Well, that was amazing. Thank you, David Kunian. Thank you, Anders Osborne, for your time and a wonderful interview.
Yeah, learned a lot about Anders I never knew.
Mm-hmm. We hope to have you back here again with us at the Tips Record Club podcast. Be sure, if you're not a member, go to tipitinasrecordclub.com or just tipitinas.com. You can find a link and you could join the club.
Yeah, and just to let you know, our next release we're really excited about. It is the Eddie Bo Other Side of Eddie Bo.
What a great record.
Really cool reissue.
So excited for everyone to hear that. A long, unreleased album. This is going to be the first reissue since it first came out. It's a very hard to find album, so we're really excited about this one.
Yeah, it's a really funky good time.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Later, guys.